I'm Jordan Carter. I'm 32 years old, and tonight I'm behind a makeshift bar in a 32nd floor penthouse overlooking Manhattan, pouring vodka tonics and Negronis for people who've already decided I'm a joke. I never imagined I'd be standing here serving up cocktails with a forced smile while under these neon lights. The biggest launch party of the year is unfolding. Emily Parker's grand debut as the new PR wunderkind at Pulse PR, her family's powerhouse agency. Growing up, I was the weird kid building sticker shops in my dorm room. Now, I'm the founder and CEO of Artify, a Web3 platform turning digital art into NFTs. Yet most of these people have no clue what I actually do. They just see the bartender's vest, the walkie-talkie clipped to my belt, and assume I'm some temp help. The truth is, I built Artify from scratch, pulled in Series A funding of $5 million, and quietly charted a path to profitability, but none of that mattered to them. All they remember is that I dropped out that I once sold phone case stickers out of my bedroom. So here I am pretending this is just another gig, but inside the furnace of every past insult is burning hotter than the city lights below. When I stepped out of the elevator, the pulse of dance tracks thumping through the mirrored walls felt almost like a challenge. I can still feel my heart pounding as I passed the doorman in his starched blazer, nodding politely but not recognizing me. I carried a tray of garnishes, lemon twists, rosemary sprigs, while my ties to Emily's world were severed into a single demand serve. No welcome, no thank you. Behind me, the skyline twinkled, a silent audience to my humiliation. My palms sweated against the crystal flute I held in my hand, the special one I'd prepared, my Genesis chalice hidden beneath a towel. I remember thinking earlier today that I would have opted out if I'd had any other choice. I tried calling a friend in the family, Marcus Davis, a lawyer and one of my oldest allies, but I knew he'd be tied up. He's still pretending he won't intervene. My Aunt Kara. She's the one who handed me the vest when I arrived, barking instructions into her walkie about parking cars. "Thanks for coming, Jordan," she said without looking me in the eye. "We need you to handle the logistics for an hour or so." There was no warmth in her voice, only the faintest undertone of "you owe us." The guests trickled in, clinking wine glasses and photographing the skyline for their Instagram stories. They had no idea I'd been the pioneer of Artify's Genesis collection, that those pixelated artworks hanging in the digital galleries out there half a world away were my creations first. I'm not here to beg for their approval. I'm here to expose the hypocrisy. After years of being dismissed as just a hobbyist, I've engineered a moment that will rip through the pretense like a thunderclap. But I can't act too soon. My plan relies on timing, waiting until the MC calls for the toast, when everyone's attention is trained on the stage and the cameras are rolling for Pulse PR's live stream. That's when I'll slip the Genesis chalice into his hand instead of the generic flute they ordered in bulk. When he raises it, the embedded QR code at the base, the laser-etched hash of the original NFT smart contract will flash under the spotlight and automatically trigger the event cameras. Then, on the massive LED behind Emily, the live dashboard of Artify's Series A raise will pop up along with the email threads proving Emily and her agency stole my artwork pitch. It's a little act of digital guerrilla theater born from every time my relatives scoffed at me for figuring things out. You should know there's risk in what I'm doing. Pulse PR is no small fish. They have deep pockets, connections at every big media outlet, and a reputation to protect. If this backfires, I could face legal threats, defamation suits, maybe even a smear campaign that drowns Artify before it finds its stride. But I've been patient. I've let them celebrate Emily's glossy Instagram posts, hers in designer heels, brandishing champagne flutes with new beginnings printed on them, while my own posts went ignored. I refused to call attention to my own success. I've been the silent operator behind the scenes, letting the numbers speak for themselves. Now it's time to speak loudly. A cluster of guests crowds the bar, asking for something bubbly or just make it special. I nod, pouring Prosecco into tall flutes, capturing each golden bubble in my peripheral vision. That's how I do it. Keep my head down, let them underestimate me, then strike when they can't see it coming. In the shadows behind the bar stands Maya and Gwen, my CTO and best friend. She's rigged the AV system, hidden nodes in the ceiling speakers, a discreet camera feed tied to her phone. She gives me the slightest nod. That's our signal 2 minutes. I glance at Emily, who's standing front and center near the panoramic windows, flicking her hair as she jokes with her PR team. Her laugh is clipped, rehearsed the laughter of someone trained to project joy. But when she sees me behind the bar, her lips tighten for a split second, and I catch the shock in her eyes. She thinks I'll be embarrassed. She thinks I'm still the kid making stickers. She's wrong. I clear my throat, stepping out from behind the counter. Ladies and gentlemen, I say, my voice firm enough to carry over the lounge music. Conversations hush, a ripple of curiosity passing through the crowd. The MC, startled, lowers his champagne flute just as I reach into my apron pocket and produce the Genesis chalice, gleaming crystal laser etched with the Artify logo and the hex code 0x94B8 A3F1, the soul of the NFT that started it all. I hold it up so the light catches its facets, refracting rainbows across the marble floor. I promised something special tonight, I continue. And this, the Genesis chalice, is more than just a toast. It's the beginning of transparency. That's when the spotlight on the ceiling clicks on, bathing me in an almost holy glow. The hush deepens. I place the chalice into the MC's hands, guiding his fingers to the base where the tiny QR code is etched, the kind of code that looks like an afterthought unless you know what it really does. Go ahead, I say, scan it, or just toast as you normally would. The MC hesitates, scanning the flat surface, then offers a bemused smirk. All right, he says to Artify's founder. He raises the chalice, the Prosecco within catching the highlight fizzing as though electrified. Then he taps it lightly against his microphone. In that instant, everything shifts. The AV monitors flicker first, a loading icon, then the bold text, Series A, $500,000, raised, scrolling across in crisp white letters. Next comes the dashboard graphs of investor commitments, video clips of shoutouts from Olivia Chen, our lead VC, congratulating us on the innovation we're bringing to Web3. And then Maya's coup de grace, a muted clip of Emily Parker casually downloading my prototype files from Artify's private folder months ago, fingertips hovering over the copy button. A gasp ripples through the crowd. Emily's face drains of color, her polished composure fracturing. I step back, letting the silence stretch. For years, I've listened to comments like, "When are you going to get a real job?" or "Artify is just a fad." Tonight, their words are right back at them, echoing against the skyline. I don't need to say anything more. The screen says it all. And yet, in that charged pause, I feel the weight of every insult, every rolled eyes exchange crush against my chest. I taste adrenaline, bitter and exhilarating, and I know this moment will never leave me. My career, my reputation, even my relationships will pivot on what happens next. The music stops. No one moves. All eyes are on me, on Emily, on the proof that stuns this room into stillness. I hear a single wine glass shatter somewhere to my left. I catch Emily's lips quiver, and in that flash, I see a person staring back at me who's been propped up on pedigree instead of merit. I step forward once more, lifting my own flute, an identical Genesis chalice I tucked under the bar earlier, and I let the bubbles rise toward the rim. To truth, I say softly, barely audible yet somehow heard by every soul here. The moment stretches a beat longer, and then a roar of uproarious applause breaks the spell. Some cheer, some shout questions. Others stare wide-eyed at the rolling footage. But I'm already walking away, pulling the bartender's vest from my shoulders and tossing it onto the counter. I'm done playing their game. As I slip past clusters of stunned guests, the skyline opens before me, the city trembling under the weight of my revelation. Rooftop grills sizzle, forgotten in the background. A door slides open, and I'm gone into night, into freedom, into the next chapter I've claimed for myself. And as the pulsating bass of the closing song kicks back in, I know this is only the beginning. The launch party won't be forgotten. My family won't be able to pretend they never saw it. Somewhere high above the streets of New York, I've reclaimed my voice, and I won't let them take it away again. A waiter. I slid into the back seat of a yellow cab, my chest still thundering from the penthouse chaos. Outside, the streets of Manhattan blurred into streaks of neon and asphalt beneath the taxi's headlights. But inside, I was locked on that one moment, the instant the QR code lit up the screen, the hush that swallowed the party, the ripple of shock on Emily's face. My hands trembled as I unbuttoned the bartender's vest and tossed it onto the seat beside me. Every honk, every revving engine felt like applause. But applause for what? For exposing them. For risking everything I'd built. My phone buzzed. Marcus, Maya, Olivia, each name glowing with possibility and peril. I tapped through Maya's message, showed her grinning behind her laptop, 3 new video timestamps flagged. Olivia's said simply, "Call me ASAP," Marcus texted, "Check your email. Complex asset issue." None mentioned congratulations. They were all waiting to see if I'd survive my own stunt. When I got home, the loft was quiet, the only light coming from the soft halo of my living room smart lamp. I sank onto the leather couch and let my mind reel. In the kitchen, the Genesis chalice rested on a high shelf, a trophy and a trap in one crystal flute, etched with Artify's logo, and that shimmering hex code perched atop its steel base marked Series A, $5,000, $1,000. I'd meant it as a symbol of transparency, a toast to truth. But every time I looked at it, I felt the weight of every decision that followed. I grabbed my laptop. The Artify dashboard, still open on my screen, investors' comments glowing in real time, some congratulatory, some cautious. I flicked to my inbox pitches from media outlets, legal queries, 3 interview requests for tech blogs, each wanting solely your artistic vision, none daring to mention the scandal that had just detonated in front of hundreds. And tucked beneath those were family texts from my mother. "What did you do?" "We need to talk," from Aunt Kara. That was uncalled for and blip from Emily. "Can we meet? I owe you an apology." My chest clenched. I'd walked away from them on the rooftop. Now they wanted dialogue. Morning light spilled through the warehouse-style windows, and I found myself at a corner cafe 2 blocks away, waiting for Olivia Chen, the VC who'd backed Artify's first seed round. She arrived precisely at 9 in a tailored blazer and carrying nothing but a leather-bound notebook. We ordered black coffee and sat at a reclaimed wood table amid exposed brick and hanging Edison bulbs. "Jordan," she said, voice low, that was theatrical. She didn't smile. "I've seen pitches, but you turned a PR disaster into your narrative. Impressive. But Pulse PR is powerful. They can drag you into months of litigation, IP infringement, defamation. They'll argue you hacked their systems to get that video." I leaned back, weighing her words. "It was publicly displayed," I said. "Maya recorded it. It's in the public domain." She cocked an eyebrow. "They'll still sue?" I stirred my coffee. "How do I protect the platform without burying the truth?" She took a slow sip. "You need a strategy. Legal Shield's PR counter-message, maybe a preemptive press release framing the scandal as a symptom of old-school gatekeeping. But be careful too aggressive and your investors panic. Too passive and you lose credibility." That afternoon, I called Marcus Davis, my family's old-school attorney and my secret confidant. His office was a high-rise corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "Jordan," he said, voice measured, "I got the docs. Pulse PR has a mountain of non-disclosure agreements and hush clauses. They'll allege breach of contract, misappropriation of trade secrets. Even if Maya's footage is legal, you could be forced into a costly settlement." My throat tightened. "So, what do we do?" He paused. "We negotiate. We gather all evidence, emails, timestamps, IP logs. We draft a protective filing, so if they sue, we countersue for tortious interference and defamation. You need to look like a victim, not a provocateur." I ran a hand through my hair. I don't want to hide. I want them to own what they did. Marcus sighed. That's noble, but noble gets expensive. Are you ready to spend 7 figures in legal fees? His question cut deeper than any insult I'd ever endured. Back in my loft that evening, I paced the hardwood floors, the Genesis chalice glaring at me from its shelf. I imagined smashing it, letting the crystal shards speak the violence of the moment. Instead, I opened my browser and drafted an open letter on artify.com. A timeline of events, screenshots of pitch decks, code commits, email chains, Maya's unedited video clips, and the chalice's image front and center as proof and promise. I formatted it carefully. Italics for emphasis, bullet points for clarity, hyperlinks to undisputed facts. I titled it Artify's Quest for Transparency and wrote, "They mocked our work as a hobby. They exploited it as a scheme. Here's the truth." I hovered over the publish button. Below a chat window blinked Emily, "Call me." I stared at the screen, torn between catharsis and caution. If I clicked, the world would read every allegation at once. If I didn't, I risked letting Pulse PR's spin doctors rewrite history. My phone vibrated again, Emily's number insistent. I felt my pulse quicken. Do I indulge curiosity or maintain my distance? I glanced at the chalice's QR base, the same code that had detonated the rooftop. In its reflection, I saw myself at a crossroads, silence or roar. My finger hovered above the publish key as her call went to voicemail. I closed my eyes and exhaled, knowing that whichever path I chose would define not just my company's future, but my own sense of self. And in that pregnant pause, I realized the next move wasn't just about artify or revenge. It was about whether I could trust myself to wield truth responsibly. My heart hammered one last beat before the next chapter began. I clicked publish just as the clock struck 10, and for a heartbeat, the screen glowed back at me in silence. Then the numbers started climbing, site hits, social shares, retweets. My open letter unfurled like wildfire across feeds. They mocked our work as a hobby. They exploited it as a scheme. Here's the truth. I stared at the Genesis chalice on my desk, its crystal curves catching the lamplight. It felt heavier now, less a trophy and more a gauntlet thrown at the feet of every gatekeeper who ever sneered at me. My phone buzzed non-stop. Maya sending me raw data clips, Olivia texting, impressive. Call me Marcus. Warning, they're drafting papers. My chest tightened. Adrenaline mixed with dread as I realized there was no turning back. I had declared war on every assumption, every scoff, every captive audience that dismissed Web3 as a fad. Within the hour, my inbox became a battleground. 4 investors pledged support. This is exactly why we backed you. Transparency is your edge. Hold firm. 2 others hedged, concerned about legal exposure. Let's discuss damage control. Might need to invoke force majeure. That last phrase felt like a white flag. I spun in my leather chair, boots tapping on the hardwood torn between the purity of truth and the pragmatism of preservation. Should I draft a polished press release to soothe the jittery ones? Should I hire a crisis PR firm to craft a narrative or double down on raw authenticity? In that moment, I realized my greatest strength and greatest weakness was my refusal to compromise. I reached for the chalice finger, tracing the laser-etched hash 0x94B8 A3F1 and whispered no retreat. No. By midday, tech blogs were aflame. Startup founder exposes big-name PR agency. Web3 showdown on the rooftop artifies Genesis chalice goes viral. Social feeds exploded with memes of me brandishing that flute like a sword, digital artists rallying in solidarity, traditional journalists sniffing scandal. My phone rang 6 digits from a major newspaper, and I answered expecting hostility. Instead, the editor said, "Jordan, we want the full timeline. Can you walk us through it?" My voice wavered as I recounted the parking vest moment, the rooftop toast, the QR-triggered dashboard. She thanked me and promised front-page placement. I closed my eyes, tasting victory and vertigo in equal measure. Here was the moment I'd dreamt of my story, my terms. But what if the spotlight burned too bright? What if every flaw, every misstep, every hesitation got magnified? The chalice gleamed in the corner of my vision, silent counsel to stand firm. Late afternoon brought the first family salvo. My mother's text read, "Jordan, please stop this. You're embarrassing us. We love you, but this is too much." Then Aunt Kara, "You need to retract or we'll involve counsel. This ends now." A voicemail from Emily Jordan. "I saw your post. Can we talk?" My heart pounded at the thought of her voice-calibrated apology, chilling in its precision. My thumb hovered over the reply button. I imagined her rehearsing each word, adjusting her tone to seem contrite. Was her regret genuine, or another piece of theater? I pictured the chalice again, its hollow curve reflecting party lights, then scrutiny. I silenced my phone. If I responded now, I risked letting them steer the dialogue. If I stayed silent, their unanswered questions might warp into rumors. I clenched my fists, each knuckle white, and reminded myself why I started Artify: to break free of expectation, to let truth stand on its own. By early evening, Pulse PR issued their counterattack, a sleek statement branded with their logo, accusing me of unauthorized access to client materials, defamatory allegations, and hinting at a forthcoming lawsuit to protect our IP and goodwill. Their words drip with corporate polish, but the implication stung like acid. Suddenly, I was the criminal mastermind. I poured a glass of water, hands shaking, and replayed Maya's footage of Emily copying my prototype designs. Every frame, every timestamp, every chat log bulletproof. But would that hold up in court? Would the legal battle drown out the moral high ground? I paced, boots thudding until I bumped into the chalice on its shelf, the clink echoing like a warning bell. I nursed a cold sweat, imagining a judge siding with the PR giant, forcing me to pay damages and issue a public apology. My stomach knotted. I realized retribution is a fierce ally but a fickle friend. Just then, Maya's text lit up my screen. Found something else. Pulse PR CFO forwarded their talking points to Emily's personal email weeks ago. They planned to undermine you internally. My pulse doubled. If we could surface that email thread, we'd show it wasn't just Emily, but a concerted effort by the agency. I fired off a reply. Send everything. Within minutes, her reply arrived, a PST file brimming with messages tagged Project Eclipse Jordan Carter, discredit. I gingerly downloaded the archive, feeling as though I'd cracked open a Pandora's box. As I sifted through, one subject line jumped out: press kit Operation Eclipse, Jordan's comeuppance. Beneath it, directives to plant stories in niche blogs, hire bots to spam NFT forums, even a budget for influencer seeding. My breath hitched. They'd been planning this for months. This wasn't reactive, it was premeditated. Armed with fresh evidence, I drafted a second post: Pulse PR's Project Eclipse exposed. I embedded screenshots of the email thread, redacting personal details but leaving names and dates intact. Then I attached a photo of the Genesis chalice, casting its prismatic glow across the folder icon. At the top of the page, I wrote, "When you're so threatened by someone's success, you'll burn your own house down to stop them. Here's the proof." My finger trembled as I hit publish. For a moment, I felt unstoppable, a David armed with crystalline slingshots against corporate Goliaths. But power has its gravity. Within minutes, my phone rang again. This time, it was that major newspaper editor voice: "Urgent, Jordan, people are freaking out. Can you give us an on-camera interview? We want live quotes." Simultaneously, an email arrived from the law firm representing Pulse PR: cease and desist. Take down all allegations or face injunction. My mind spun. If I agreed to the live interview, I risked wandering into legal landmines on record. If I ignored it, I'd look evasive. I closed my eyes, vision blurring, and pictured that champagne flute once more, its slender form fragile yet defiant. The chalice was more than a symbol now. It was my moral compass. I realized the next decision I made would define not just Artify's future, but my identity idealist who stands by truth at any cost, or pragmatist who bends to survive. My finger hovered over the schedule interview button and the respond to council link. Sweat beaded at my hairline. I could almost hear the echo of Emily's measured apology, the practiced lilt of Aunt Kara's demands, the hush of the penthouse crowd when the dashboard exploded. The weight of those memories settled on me heavier than any legal threat. I exhaled slowly, sensing the storm gathering on the horizon. In that suspended moment, I realized there was no safe path forward, only the path I chose. And as the night wrapped its darkness around my loft, I understood this was the true point of no return. I woke up to the insistent glow of my phone, 2 voicemails, a dozen text alerts, and 3 missed calls labeled urgent in Marcus's handwriting. My head throbbed not from hangover, but from the weight of decisions I'd made. The previous night's posts had gone viral. My tweets had been quoted on tech podcasts. The email from Pulse PR's lawyers sat unread in my inbox. They demanded I take everything down or face an injunction. And that morning, the editor from the City Ledger wanted me on camera at noon. My loft felt smaller than ever. The Genesis chalice on its shelf seemed to loom over me, a silent judge demanding I choose retreat or stand my ground. I poured black coffee and stared at the crystal flute, the hex code 0x94B8, A3F1, shimmering in the lamplight. The chalice had been my symbol of transparency, but now it felt like a gauntlet: throw it down and fight, or tuck it away and live to fight another day. By 9:30, I was drafting my reply to the Ledger. I will appear live, unedited, on my terms. I outlined conditions: the interview would take place in my loft with Maya controlling the feed. No questions off camera. And I'd live stream simultaneously on Artify's decentralized network, so if Pulse PR managed to block the city's channel, the truth would still flow unhindered. As I typed, Aunt Kara's text flashed, "You're playing with fire. Stop this nonsense." Next, my mother. "Please think of the family." My fingers paused. I pictured her as a little girl, proud and bright, before she'd learned to measure worth by diplomas and designer labels. I thought of every sneer, every smirk, every time my passion for digital art had been dismissed as a kid's game. I realized this was bigger than reputation. It was an argument for the next generation of creators who don't fit traditional molds. I hit send on the Ledger reply, forwarded the legal demand to Marcus with one sentence, "Proceed with our plan," and felt the first spark of resolve ignite in my chest. Maya arrived 15 minutes later, earbuds in her laptop under her arm. "I've tested the fallback stream," she said, settling into the corner of my living room turned studio. She'd set up 3 cameras, a mixer, and an AR overlay that could call up email screenshots mid-interview when I lifted the chalice. If they go dark, we spin up a P2P node. Viewers can connect directly. No central server to shut down. She handed me a soundcheck earpiece and a water bottle. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The ritual felt oddly comforting: stick the mic, raise the chalice, summon the evidence. But there was risk. If I stumbled, if my voice cracked, if I revealed a single miscalculation, the world would pounce. I paced, thinking of Olivia's warning: legal fees can kill you faster than a lawsuit. But I'd already spent everything I had on this moment. There was no turning back. At 11:50, a small crew from the City Ledger filed in: camera operator, sound tech, a reporter named Claire, who looked sympathetic but official. The loft's windows framed the skyline like a darkened movie screen. I positioned the bar height table where the chalice waited, placed the legal demand letter beside it like a prop. Claire checked the mic, then looked at me. "Jordan, are you sure you want to do this?" "Absolutely," I said, voice steady. "On my terms." She nodded, glanced at her watch. "Okay, live in 10. She stepped back. The red RX light blinked on. My heart pounded, sweat cooling on my neck. I took a deep breath, centered myself with the memory of that rooftop moment, the hush, the gasp, the beginning of my story. Hello, I'm Jordan Carter, founder and CEO of Artify. My voice filled the loft, echoing off exposed brick. I lifted the Genesis chalice and held it for the camera. You may recognize this chalice from last week's launch party. It's more than a toast glass, it's a symbol of transparency etched with the hash of Artify's Genesis collection. Tonight, I'm here to speak my truth. I paused as Claire's voice came through my earpiece. Questions in 5 minutes. Keep it tight. I breathed again, sensing the rhythm. Let's address Pulse PR's allegations directly. I tapped the chalice on the table. First, unauthorized access. Maya's footage publicly displayed at the penthouse was captured on an open network fully legal. Second, defamatory allegations. Here. I held up a laminated screenshot of their internal email titled Project Eclipse Operation Eclipse Jordan Carter's Comeuppance. The camera zoomed in on the words, and I watched Claire's eyes go wide. They plotted to discredit me, to plant stories, to buy bots, to spam NFT forums. That's not competition, that's sabotage. My pulse pounded, but my hand was steady. I felt the weight of every doubt I'd ever had, every moment I'd questioned my own vision. In that moment, I felt invincible. But as I prepared to segue into the Q4, Claire's producer appeared at the door, whispering urgently into her headset. Claire's eyes darted to me and back to her watch. "I'm so sorry," she mouthed. Then she turned off her camera and packed up. The crew filed out, murmuring. I blinked, heart skipping. "What's happening?" I whispered into my mic. Maya's face drained of color. She'd seen it coming. "They got an injunction," she said. "The City Channel's feed has been cut. The recorder's gone dark." That hush settled over me again, heavier than the rooftop silence. My broadcast had been silenced in its prime. My stomach roiled, every fear I'd had crashed in, threatening to drown me. I looked down at the chalice, its facets catching the afternoon light streaming in. Was this defeat? I could hear the sound of machinery powering down cables going dead, the painful hum of loss. Then Maya sprang into action. She tapped her laptop fingers, dancing as she spoke in staccato code P2P Networks Live. Redirect to 192.168.1.255.8080. QR codes auto-generate. We've got 10,000 viewers connecting already. She waved at the empty camera positions. Stand by. My mind cleared in a wash of adrenaline. This was the moment the chalice was for a beacon of truth that couldn't be caged by corporate lawyers. I picked it up, held it high for the dead cameras and the invisible crowd. If they can't hear us here, they can watch us anywhere. I said, voice echoing down half-connected lines. Artify's live stream is now open, decentralized, uncensorable. Find the link on our homepage. I felt the first surge of triumph as notification dings lit up Maya's screen. We were back on air. Within seconds, the chat exploded. "We see you. This is epic. Censorship defeated." For the first time, I felt the true power of community, the collective refusal to be silenced. Yet even as the numbers climbed 20, 50, 100,000, I felt a pang of uncertainty. This wasn't about views. It was about justice. I turned to Claire's empty tripod, imagining her live questions. I looked at Maya Keep, recording everything, audio, video, chat logs. We're building our own archive. She nodded, sweat beading on her brow. I raised the chalice again. To transparency, I said unfiltered, unbroken, unstoppable. The live stream roared its agreement. Just then my phone buzzed a text from Emily. 7 words on the screen. "We're suing you for defamation. File served." My chest dropped. The thrill of victory hit a brick wall of impending litigation. I pressed my forehead against the glass table, the chalice trembling in my grip. Could I really sustain this fight if it cost me everything? The live stream audience swelled past 200,000, clamoring for more. I looked out at the Manhattan skyline, the city that had witnessed my humiliation and my uprising, and I realized that my gamble had turned into a war with no ceasefire. My inner voice, once a whisper, urging caution, now roared, "Fight." For every creator who's been told they're a hobbyist. For every dreamer labeled a dropout. For every truth buried by money and power. I stood upright, chalice raised, soul unshaken, but the gavel of the legal system was about to drop. In that heartbeat before the storm, I understood that this chapter was not just about exposing them, it was about surviving them. The red notification dot on my phone blinked ominously, and as I lifted my head, I knew the next move would define everything, and it could crush me or crown me. I woke to the screech of my phone's alarm, though I'd barely slept. The legal threats had multiplied overnight: injunctions, subpoenas, demands for takedowns. And worst of all, the hint that Pulse PR was suing me personally, not just Artify. My head pounded as I scanned the headlines. Artify founder faces defamation lawsuit, rooftop showdown, Joe Schmo versus PR Goliaths, Web3 whistleblower, or reckless provocateur. The Genesis chalice on my nightstand caught the morning light, its crystal facets splintering rainbows across my bedroom wall. It used to mean transparency. Now it felt like a noose of my own making. I hugged the chalice, feeling its cold weight, and I wondered if I'd finally pushed too hard. But I'd already made my choice. I was done hiding behind lawyers and polished statements. I poured a black coffee, tossed on a hoodie and cargo pants, and headed to our Williamsburg co-working space. Maya was already there, coffee in hand, frenzy in her eyes. She'd stayed up writing fallback server scripts, mirroring every Artify page to peer-to-peer nodes. "They're blocking our DNS," she said, swiping through a terminal window. "But we've got 5 mirror domains and a decentralized router ready. This community doesn't die if one gate closes." I sat at my desk, thumbed open my phone, and drafted a rapid-fire thread: how to support Artify's fight for transparency. Mirror domains, legal fundraiser, volunteer moderators, NFT drop. Normally, I loathe crowdfunding hype, but this time it felt essential. Each pledge would offset legal fees and send a message that creators won't be silenced by billion-dollar PR machines. I hit post and watched as immediate responses rolled in: artists offering server space, coders volunteering, audits, micro-donations flooding in like tiny lifeboats under a storm. Around midday, I received a cryptic DM from Lily Tran, my cousin Emily's influencer sister, and notorious gossip someone I never expected on my side. Her message read, "I've been watching. You're right. I have receipts that Emily tried to bribe certain Instagrammers to trash your NFT art. Meet me at that coffee cart on Wythe. Come alone." My pulse quickened. Lily and I had never been close. She'd always danced on Emily's stage, retweeting her family's PR talking points. If Lily was turning, it meant the fissures in the Parker clan were running deeper than I imagined. But meeting her alone carried risk. What if it was a trap? Still, I grabbed the Genesis chalice from my desk, its hex code etched on the base like a silent oath, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. As I walked out, I felt its reassuring weight, a reminder that every risk carried the seed of revelation. The coffee cart was a graffiti-splashed food truck parked under the BQE, steam curling from its spout. Lily was there, hair pulled back, hoodie up, eyes darting. She handed me her phone, a video loop of Emily texting with a mid-level PR influencer promising exclusive clips of my epic meltdown in exchange for scathing tweets. Then a screenshot of her father, Uncle Rob, authorizing a $10,000 line item in their budget for Artify smear campaign. My stomach knotted. The twist was this. The family's PR war had been bipartisan. Emily played pawn, but it was fueled by Uncle Rob's fear of disruption. He'd built his wealth on traditional marketing. Web3 was alien terrain. They weren't just mocking me, they feared me. When Lily said, "Use this, expose them all," I realized how precarious my position was. If I revealed these new documents, the lawsuit would escalate into a full-blown family feud, potentially destroying what little remained of our bond. But holding back would betray everyone who'd supported me. I exhaled, nodded, and as I turned to leave, Lily slipped me a flash drive. "For your live stream tonight," she whispered. "Be ready." Back at headquarters, I convened an emergency team huddle. I laid out the evidence: influencer bribes, budget memos, email trails. I proposed a second reveal, a midnight live stream on Artify's decentral network, where I'd share Lily's files, invite live Qplamente, and launch a limited Chalice NFT whose sales would fund our legal defense. The room went silent. This was riskier than anything we'd tried, broadcasting slander details, minting new tokens under fire, and asking our community to invest real money while the lawsuit hung over our heads. Maya spoke first. If Pulse PR responds with stronger legal firepower, they could freeze our treasury and take the NFTs off-chain. We'd be hosting a fundraiser that vanishes overnight. Olivia's voice crackled through the speakerphone. But if it works, it turns every Web3 believer into a soldier for transparency. We could flip the narrative so that Pulse PR looks like the aggressor crushing grassroots innovation. I leaned on the table, heart pounding. We do it. Tonight. All or nothing. They all exchanged glances. Then, one by one, nodded, some with doubt, some with fervor. In that moment, the Genesis chalice on the table seemed to glow, as though acknowledging the gamble we were about to take. The hours crawled by as we coded, loaded the files, tested smart contracts for the NFT mint, and drafted my script. I paced mentally, rehearsing the phrase that would open the stream. If you believe art and truth shouldn't be silenced, join me now. When midnight arrived, I stood in front of our makeshift studio lights, the chalice on a pedestal beside me. My palms sweated, but I reminded myself of every scoff I'd endured every time someone said, "Web3 is a bubble. You're not a real entrepreneur." Stick to stickers. This was my answer. I clicked Go Live. The viewer count climbed 10, 50, 100, far less than the rooftop scandal, but these were believers. I held up the chalice. This is more than crystalline code. It's a commitment. Tonight, I reveal how a family agency weaponized influence and money to silence innovation. Here are the files. I uploaded Lily's flash drive contents, raw video of bribe negotiations, budget spreadsheets, email chains. For the next 90 minutes, I answered questions, displayed documents, and walked through our legal strategy, pausing to commiserate. I know it's scary to invest in a cause when the predators come for your throat. But if we don't stand together, they win by default. The chat exploded with support. Pledges flooded in to buy the Chalice NFT at a steep premium. The smart contract minted 500 tokens in 2 minutes. Our legal war chest grew by 5 digits. But right at the crescendo, when my voice trembled with both triumph and fatigue, my live stream glitched. Screen froze, audio garbled, then cut to black. My heart lurched. I stared at the chalice, now flickering under the studio lights like a dying star. Maya's off-camera voice hissed, "They're jamming our signal, deactivate!" I had 2 seconds to choose: fight the blackout by manually switching to a backup node, risking a data wipe, or accept defeat and salvage the new funds we'd raised. My inner voice screamed, "Don't let them silence you." I slammed a fist into the table, rattling the chalice, and shouted, "Switch now!" The feed stuttered, then roared back to life, a dozen backup nodes, kaleidoscopic shards of the live stream scattering across the web, impossible to kill. But in that instant of chaos, a new message flashed across my screen: emergency DOJ inquiry. Please contact 1-800-FBI. My blood ran cold. I looked at the chalice, its facets reflecting that ominous number. Legal threats from Pulse PR I'd expected. A federal inquiry I hadn't. The screen filled with viewer comments, some cheering, some panicked. I realized that by using transparency as a weapon, I'd drawn the attention of a far bigger machine. And as the clock in the corner of the stream ticked past 100 a.m., I understood that the battle I'd ignited was spiraling beyond my control. The line between rebellion and recklessness had blurred, and I was careening straight toward the next unimaginable challenge. I woke to the shrill ring of my phone exactly at 2:03 a.m., the timestamp of that chilling DOJ inquiry notification. My heart slammed against my ribs as I fumbled for the chalice on my nightstand. Even in the dark, I sensed its crystalline facets glinting back at me, a reminder of every choice I'd made. I pressed call on the unknown number. A flat, professional voice answered Mr. Carter. "This is Special Agent Rodriguez with the FBI Cybercrimes Division. We need to discuss several anonymous tips regarding possible misuse of decentralized networks and potential money laundering via NFT transactions." My pulse roared in my ears. I'd expected legal threats from Pulse PR, but a federal investigation. This crossed a new, terrifying line. As I sat on the edge of my mattress, the Genesis chalice in my hand felt impossibly heavy, as though the weight of public scrutiny and personal reckoning had coalesced into that single object. By dawn, I was pacing my loft coffee, gone cold, adrenaline spiking. I replayed every step, the rooftop toast that triggered AV exploits, the explosive live streams, the midnight fundraiser for the legal war chest, Lily's flash drive of damning family evidence. Was any of it a crime? I'd shared publicly available emails, I'd used open networks, I'd asked my community for voluntary donations. Yet here I was, accused of misuse and money laundering. The boundaries between activism and illegality blurred under fluorescent lights. My phone rang again, this time. Olivia Chen. "Jordan, I'm on my way. I'll connect you with top-tier forensic accountants and crisis counsel. We're not going down without a fight." Her calm determination cut through my panic. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Set it up," I said, "and tell Maya to secure every node and mirror domain. Lock down all IP logs." By late afternoon, my loft had transformed into a war room. Maya's monitors lined the walls, each screen displaying code scrolls, connection graphs, legal documents, chat logs from thousands of Artify supporters flooding in real time. Olivia coordinated 3 Zoom calls at once, one with FBI liaisons to negotiate my cooperation, one with forensic accountants tracing the NFT funds, one with my PR team drafting a public statement. Through it all, I kept glancing at the chalice perched on the coffee table. It had begun as a toast glass. Now it was a signpost pointing toward transparency or doom. I felt the old fear of failure clawing at me. Would my empire crumble under federal scrutiny? Would the narrative of rebel truth-teller collapse into that of a reckless cybercriminal? That evening, I drove across town to meet Special Agent Rodriguez in person. We met in a windowless conference room at a government facility somewhere near the East River, a place that smelled of stale coffee and linoleum. On the table between us sat 2 glasses of water. I placed the Genesis chalice gingerly beside mine, as if it could speak for me. She raised an eyebrow. "Is that a symbol?" I said. "Of what I believe in, that art and truth shouldn't be censored even by the richest agencies or the deepest pockets." She studied the etched hex code. "Interesting." She slid a file toward me, printouts of blockchain transactions, flagged donations to my fundraiser, patterns of peer-to-peer traffic she described as anomalies. My throat went dry. "I'll cooperate fully," I said. "But let me be clear. Every transaction is voluntary, public, and for legal defense. There's no laundering." She nodded, her expression inscrutable. "We'll verify. But cybercrime laws are broad. You're walking a fine line. We'll need your full disclosure on all nodes and mirror domains." Back home, I opened the ledger of Artify's finances, every smart contract, every wallet, every coded line. I spent hours sitting on the floor, cross-referencing logs with live-stream timestamps, ensuring that every penny raised for the legal fund was transparently accounted for. Maya and I drafted a real-time public dashboard that would display minute by minute the flow of funds into and out of our defense account. We integrated that dashboard into Artify's site under Transparency Portal, accessible via the same QR code on the chalice's base. It felt like a countermeasure. If federal agents and Wall Street investors could see exactly where every dollar went, maybe we could neutralize the money laundering charge before it metastasized. On day 3 of the inquiry, I went live again this time, in partnership with the FBI's Cyber Crimes Division, under supervision on Artify's P2P network and a mainstream streaming platform simultaneously. I opened with the Genesis chalice held high. "This chalice represents our commitment to truth," I said. "And right now, I'm not alone. I'm joined by Special Agent Rodriguez, who's here to clarify the federal inquiry into our operations. Transparency isn't just a buzzword, it's a legal shield." For the next 45 minutes, we went through the blockchain records line by line, donations tied to user wallets, defense expenditures, no obfuscation, no hidden accounts. Community moderators logged into the transparency portal in real time, verifying entries. I felt a surreal calm as I walked through each step. Here's the contract for the Chalice NFT drop. Here's the escrow mechanism. Here's the wallet address. The chat exploded with support, and for once I saw the Chalice not as a battleground token, but as a unifier, bridging the gap between hacker ethos and institutional oversight. After the live stream, I received messages from surprised investors. "If you can satisfy the FBI, count me in. Your transparency model should be in Harvard Business Review. This could revolutionize how startups handle legal risk." My chest swelled with relief and pride, like breathing fresh air after years underwater. Yet I knew the inquiry wasn't over. There were still questions about the morass of influencer bribes, the family's smear campaign, the ethics of decentralized fundraising under litigation. And then there was Emily, somewhere watching, waiting. That night I found a voicemail from Emily Jordan. "I've been silent because I didn't know where to begin. You involved the federal government. I'm sorry it got this far. Call me." I stared at the chalice for a long moment. Its facets shimmered like tears. I knew a phone call alone couldn't undo months of conflict, yet I also sensed a fragile opening. I punched in her number. Her voice trembled on the line. "They're grilling me at Pulse PR headquarters. They cut my bonus and my father's under review by DOJ auditors. I need your help. I never wanted this to happen." My heart clenched at her vulnerability. The Emily I'd known had been a practiced performer, but now I heard genuine fear. "Talk to me," I said. "What can I do?" She hesitated, then confessed I believed in pedigree over passion. "I was afraid to admit that you, the kid with stickers, would out-innovate me. When they asked for someone to take you down, I thought I was protecting my future." Her apology tumbled out, rough edges and all. My chest tightened with conflicting emotions, anger, pity, longing for reconciliation. I remembered my mother's words. "We love you, but you broke the family." I realized the inquiry had exposed not just legal entanglements, but a moral reckoning for us all. "Emily," I said softly, "we've both been hung up on what we thought we should be rather than who we are. I'll help you on one condition: complete transparency. You testify to the DOJ about your role, publicly acknowledge the truth." There was a long silence, then her voice tentative but determined. "I'll do it. You have my word." I exhaled as if shedding a second skin. "Then let's make this right," I said. "We'll meet tomorrow at DOJ offices. I'll stand by you." I hung up, looking at the chalice. It had carried me through humiliation, revolution, near ruin, and now it stood for something bigger: the possibility of healing. I realized that this last chapter wasn't about victory over my enemies or vindication of my beliefs. It was about forging a new path for all of us who straddle innovation and tradition, passion and pedigree. As dawn broke over Brooklyn, I packed a small bag laptop, chalice, printed transcripts of live stream logs, Lily's flash drive, the transparency dashboard printouts. I'd be arriving at DOJ offices not as a suspect, but as a guide showing them how to navigate this brave new world of decentralized creation and open source justice. Behind me lay battlefields of smear campaigns and court filings. Ahead lay the possibility of systemic change and perhaps the fragile rebirth of family trust. I stepped out into the morning cold, the chalice secure at my side, and took a deep breath of urban air. The next door I opened wouldn't just be a federal one, it would be the door to our shared future. And as I walked toward it, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Story 2. I'm Evan Carter, 32, a freelance digital artist who's drifted from Barcelona to Bali, and yet nothing felt as heavy as the marble hall of Chicago's Metropolitan Club tonight. My mother, Margaret Carter, legend of the city's schools, is retiring, and this gala is her final spotlight. The mayor's here, old colleagues, proud pupils, everyone except me, the quirky son who never settled down. My brother Ryan, golden child with his perfect life and Instagram-worthy family, stands by her side, champagne glass in hand, basking in the applause. I'm not here for congratulations. I came back from Lisbon to end her legacy. All my life, I was the footnote Christmas mornings when Ryan got a bike and I got socks. Birthdays marked only by a last-minute card. Vacations where I barely made the photos. And tonight, after 20 minutes of self-congratulation, she'll deliver the familiar punchline. I can see the gleam in her eye as she approaches the climax of her speech. I was blessed with 2 sons, Ryan, my pride, and Evan, my reminder that not every lesson can be taught. The crowd will laugh, Ryan will smirk, and I'll sip my water waiting. Under my chair is a plain blue gift bag, the wrecking ball. Because for a year I've known the truth she buried in the attic, a letter from Dean Whitaker, my real father, dated 11 months before I was born, and a photo of him and Mom on a beach in March 1991. I found phone bills, bank statements showing PTA funds used for romantic getaways, and text messages confirming Ryan's complicity. She bribed him with his Lake Forest down payment to keep my secret. When she finishes, I stand. "Margaret," I say into the microphone, "I have a gift, a symbol." I pull out the same sorry mug she's given me every Christmas since I was 15. She gave me one of these every year, I explain. I thought it was time to return the gesture. I set it on the podium, then click the hidden remote. The screen flickers first, Dean's letter, then the beach photo, then PTA ledgers, then Ryan's text. Gasps ripple. Ryan's face drains of color. Margaret stammers. I pick up the mug and let it fall. It shatters. "You made this moment inevitable," I say, eyes locked on her. I walk back as people stare, some with pity, some with disgust. The mayor slips away. The crowd files out in stunned silence. My father, Richard, sits frozen until he finds his voice. "Margaret, get out now." She leaves alone, but the story isn't over. Dean steps forward, a silver-haired man in his 60s, poised and resolute. Without a mic, he raises his voice. I stayed silent for her reputation. I won't anymore. He recounts the affair, the stolen PTA funds, my birthright denied. Richard crosses to him, disbelief etched on his face. "You let me believe he was mine." "I was wrong," Dean replies. "You loved him. I ran from my cowardice." Even that moment of catharsis leaves me hollow. Victory feels empty. Ryan finds me later, bourbon in hand. "You humiliated her," he murmurs. "You humiliated all of us." He's terrified of the fallout, his reputation, his clients, his mortgage. I remind him, "You sold me out for a down payment." He can't answer and walks away. In the wreckage of shards, I pocket one curved fragment of the mug, the incomplete essor. A token of every half-hearted apology I ever got. Then Grace, my half-sister, texts meet at a diner. She's flown in, watched it all from the back. She hands me an envelope, Mom's will. Of course she's prepared. Any scandal transfers everything to Ryan, her loyal heir. I feel her manipulative grip tighten even from the grave. Grace also brings a cache of office files left in her attic donor lists, secret bribes, promises, traded blackmail material, an empire of favors hidden behind the PTA's veneer. That night, I thumb through my mother's handwritten will. Her final gambit, even scandal, must feed her mythology. Ryan inherits if he remains obedient. I realize she planned for me to be the villain so her facade survives. The next morning, I meet Grace at the lakefront. She pours coffee. Wind off Michigan bites, but I feel alive. She always thought she'd win, I say. She counted on my silence. Grace slides me the last piece audio from the gala's wireless mics, Mom rehearsing how she'd mock me smug about my weakness. He's too weak to confront me, she'd said. My throat tightens. Weakness. That accusation burns deeper than any headline. So we take the files from her stuffy office PA textbooks, pristine plaques, and behind them a safe filled with envelopes of cash, doctored invoices, and names of everyone she controlled. We photograph it all. There's no more hiding. By nightfall, the Tribune splashes my meltdown on the front page, spinning me as an unstable son attacking a beloved educator. Margie's allies mobilize anonymous sources, paint me bitter, mentally unwell. It's her last weapon controlling the narrative. Ryan's house looks untouchable, 3-car garage, perfect lawn, but I show up unannounced. He's pale. She's not quitting, he admits. You provoked her. I know, I say, but I had to tell the truth. That evening, Cousin Paul delivers the gala footage unseen before the show, Margaret pacing, counting on my compliance. Her casual cruelty, her bets on my endless quiet. I slip the USB into my laptop and listen, her voice sharp and dismissive. That betrayal stings more than the headlines. Now it's clear she built a house of cards on lies, and I'm the one blowing on it. The next move is mine and intentional. Tomorrow, I'll hold a press conference right here in the Metropolitan Club. Same podium, same stage, but this time I control the story. I'll stand with the evidence, the audio, the documents, and announce that truth matters more than her reputation. No more fragments, no more half apologies. It's time to rebuild from honesty, and I won't be silent again.